When I think of two armies going into battle in large-scale combined arms warfare, the Battlefield series is what comes to mind. For myself and for a lot of others, Battlefield has been the premier franchise to turn to in order to scratch that large-scale warfare itch. Whether it's set in the past, the present, or the future, this series has allowed us to be a regular soldier in grandiose battles, a single cog in the machine that is the team, doing our part to contribute to the battles that we fight. While the future of the Battlefield series is uncertain with the irreversible damage that Battlefield 2042 has caused, no matter how much that game has been updated since then, that doesn't stop us from revisiting and playing the games that actually stay true to the strengths of the series. While no Battlefield game is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, each of them having their own individual flaws or otherwise annoying things to deal with, we do have games that get as close to a perfect experience as possible. Case in point, the game that we will be covering today for its 10-year anniversary. This game, having been released in just as bad of a state as Battlefield 2042's launch, started off as a game that everyone thought would never recover. Over the years though, not only did this game fully recover through the fixes, but it went on to prosper with a ton of additional content over the years. And when the future Battlefield titles slacked, this game was ready to welcome players back with open arms. To this day, this game has stood the test of time as reflected from its healthy player base. And given the special occasion, I'd say that now is as good a time as any to hop into this game to experience the franchise at its peak. Happy 10-year anniversary, Battlefield 4. Before we get into what makes Battlefield 4 so great, it's worth taking a trip back in time for a brief moment to recall just how bad this game's launch was. I feel like this game's launch often gets misremembered nowadays as being not that bad or dismissed altogether given how amazing the game is nowadays. While yes, I do agree that this game is amazing nowadays, holy shit, I forgot just how bad this game's launch was. When digging up old YouTube videos when this game first launched, I had forgotten just how bad the netcode was and how often the game would crash. I even had a core memory unlocked when I was looking through all these old YouTube videos. I was playing Obliteration on Operation Locker. The match had gone on for an hour and a half or so, if my memory serves me right, since this was before a timer was added to Obliteration. Operation Locker plus Obliteration without a time limit equals lots of XP. The match would continue as normal until it crashed, and all of that XP I had earned was gone. All of that time was for nothing. And the worst part, that was my last match before I had to go to bed for the night, so I went to bed devastated. In hindsight, maybe I should have just gone to bed and exited the match early on, because that way my XP would have been saved, I think. To put into perspective just how bad this game's launch was, it was bad enough for DICE to halt work on all of their other projects, entering an all-hands-on-deck situation for Battlefield 4, and a class action lawsuit was launched against EA. Unfortunately, the lawsuit was dismissed, so nothing substantial happened against these bastards in the long run. Focusing back on the game though, it took a lot of time and effort for it to be fully fixed. However, through regular patches, the community test environment, and regular rewards for players who stuck with the game like XP boosts and battle packs, eventually players returned. This game was also given the opportunity to show just how well it could stand the test of time once the next entry, Battlefield Hardline, was released. Hardline's cops versus robbers setting wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea, so they hopped back to Battlefield 4 whenever they weren't feeling like playing playing hardline, and that's when this game was able to prove that it could hold itself up past the prime of its time. Once people realized how well it could stand the test of time, whenever a future entry wasn't people's cup of tea or if it was in a rough spot, Battlefield 4 was ready to welcome players back with open arms. Even today, it stands the test of time remarkably well, though there are aspects about this game nowadays that can take some getting used to upon returning to it. Starting with the good things though, why is Battlefield 4 considered by many to be the best Battlefield title? Or if not someone's favorite, then at least in someone's top 3 or top 5. The first thing that comes to my mind is just how vast and smart the freedom of choice is. The vast part of that statement comes with how many options you have at your disposal. Want to be a regular rifleman as the assault class dishing out health and revives? Go for it. Want to grab a Jeep, a motorcycle, or a quad bike, slap some C4 on it, and ruin a tank or IFV driver's day? Do it. Want to hop into the numerous vehicles in the game and go on an absolute tear? Get ready to have the best time of your life. Want to hop into the mobile AA vehicle and prove just how pathetic and sad you are that you need to engage in such brain-dead gameplay in order to make yourself feel happy? Your choice, I suppose. No, I'm not salty at all. Why do you ask? With there being so many options to choose from gameplay-wise thanks to the numerous weapons, gadgets, and vehicles, there's room for almost any kind of playstyle in this game. The smart part of the vast and smart freedom of choice statement is in how the game balances everything. Battlefield 4 knew that it was a Battlefield game and not some desperate attempt to chase trends rather than creating all new ones, so the class system was designed from the ground up, with making each of the 4 classes in the game distinct and unique. From the design of the soldiers, to what class-exclusive weapon types they have access to what kinds of gadgets they have. Assault being the versatile frontline soldier and medic, Engineer being the vehicle-centered class, Support being there to refill ammo and provide support through various gadgets like the XM25, C4, even the UCAV if you're one of those people, and Recon being the intel gathering class. While not perfect, as we'll discuss later in the video, there's actually some proper balancing between the vehicles. Tanks are beefy vehicles that can blast people and vehicles with a long, thick, powerful cannon, but if a tank player gets too aggressive, they can be taken out pretty quickly. Scout helicopters are fast and agile, but as a result, they can be shot out of the sky more easily due to their less resilient armor. Attack helicopters can be the most lethal vehicle out of the game, but that requires that the pilot and gunner be on comms working together, at least for the vehicle to reach its absolute fullest potential anyway. You can kit the vehicles to fit any number of playstyles as well, each with their own strengths to take advantage of and weaknesses to defend. Between the classes and vehicles, each with their own roles to play in the grandiose battle taking place, that is why the vast and smart freedom of choice in this game works so well. A second thing about Battlefield 4 that I consider a strong positive is just how deep and vast the content is. I will admit, this next statement is on the more subjective side of things, but I love just how many weapons there are in this game. To put into perspective how many weapons Battlefield 4 had at launch, there were 83 guns available from the start. Compare that to Battlefield 2042's pitiful 22 guns at launch, and it really puts into perspective how much content there is in Battlefield 4. Bump that total up to 107 weapons in Battlefield 4 when you include everything that was added in DLC. Especially when you consider unlocking the attachments for the weapons and getting the 500 kills mastery dog tags for them as well, and just with the infantry weapons, you have a lot to progress through. You've also got unlocks in things like the mastery dog tags for the vehicles too. There's also 140 levels to progress through. I'm currently at rank 110 on PlayStation and 114 on Xbox. That depth of progression plus how fun the core gameplay loop can get means not only is there a lot to go for in this game, but you can have a ton of fun while doing it. Thirdly, for a 10-year-old game, the graphics still hold up really well. It's by no means perfect, and of course, 10 years later, there are going to be looking better games, but the graphics for this game have aged really well. It's still really impressive to take a quick moment to pause and look at the fighting going on ahead while you figure out where to go next. And those cinematic only in Battlefield moments are still amazing. Whether it's you in a tank advancing out of your spawn as jets and helicopters fly by overhead, you as infantry making a push on an objective with your allies, or you needing to bail out of your jet so you parachute down right in the middle of the action, there is so much cinematically that can happen that you'll have an only in Battlefield moment at some point during your time playing. Fourthly, this game does team play right. There's enough team gameplay incorporated into the main game that even if you're a solo player, you can still play your part without needing to be extroverted if you're not feeling it. This is an absolute godsend of excellently designed gameplay, especially for introverts like myself. Not only is it not guaranteed that a bunch of friends are able or willing to hop on and play, but especially for me and my fellow introverts, we may still be in the middle of our 3 months of recovery after socializing for the weekend. So to be able to engage in team play while playing on our own is really awesome and really well appreciated. The quick chat feature that this game has allows you to communicate with your team for things like requesting health and ammo, telling them to move it, asking for repairs, and more. The game also gives you flashing icons to let you know things like whether a teammate is low on ammo, low on health, low on vehicle health, needing a ride, and more to give some more examples. The future Battlefield games would go on to continue this particular aspect as well, which I'm also really grateful for. Listing off smaller, more quality of life things that I like about this game, we've got squads of 5 instead of the usual squads of 4. You're able to see from the perspective of your squad mate to give you a better idea of whether the spawn is a safe one or not, reducing the number of times that you'll get spawn killed, though it does still happen unfortunately. You can actually see the list of squads available here, allowing you to switch squads easily if it's just you and one other person, or if your current squad keeps on dying within the span of 15 seconds. There's also a scoreboard in this game too. Not only that, this scoreboard was here at launch. Crazy, I know! Lots of the maps are well designed, with one of my favorite openings of any match being the helicopter race to the tower in Siege of Shanghai, seeing who can get to the platform with the elevators on it first. And as a final positive thing to mention, I've gained a new appreciation for the persistent lobbies that this game has. Rather than 2042's way of disbanding the lobby at the end of every match, the lobby persists to the next one. This means that players can stay in that flow rather than having that flow be interrupted by being taken back to the menu. All of this being said, Battlefield 4, just like any Battlefield game, is not perfect. Starting off with taking a look at the vehicles again, the vehicle balancing can sometimes be broken, especially if an ace pilot in either a jet or a helicopter is tearing the battlefield apart. Though, I will admit, I feel like some of the imbalance can be justified. For instance, we all know how insane some pilots can be in this game. Part of them tearing the battlefield up is reflective of their mastery of the vehicle. And the best way to fight that pilot is to learn how to counter such attacks, be it from the ground or hopping into a helicopter or jet yourself. Especially in this age of games attempting to control our experiences through matchmaking systems that place us in objectively easier or harder lobbies to control things like dopamine hits, having to actually get good at a game can be a bit of a shocker nowadays. That being said, given how significantly smaller the player base is with this game being 10 years old now, asking people to learn the ins and outs of this kind of combat is a stretch, I will admit. So while I do think that players and vehicles using their gained knowledge and time dedicated to it is absolutely warranted, I also understand just how infuriating it can be to continuously have your ass handed to you by a good enemy vehicle player. A second thing about Battlefield 4 that I'm also not fond of is the suppression effect. To keep it a long story short, if an enemy focuses concentrated fire on you, you'll become suppressed. The screen goes a tad bit blurry, and any returning fire on your end while you're suppressed is made less accurate. This actively makes the gunplay worse, as while you're suppressed, even if your aim is right on target, the increased bullet deviation while suppressed means you won't be hitting a lot of your shots. This means that cheap-feeling deaths can and will absolutely occur. Even if you objectively had the better aim in a gunfight, if you're suppressed and the enemy isn't, the game gives you the middle finger and throws down the reverse Uno card as you receive that cheap-feeling death. And don't even get me started on when both you and the enemy are suppressed. Gunfights just become a mess. Number 3 on the negatives list is that sometimes the weapon attachment descriptions and stats bars can be misleading, particularly with some of the barrel and muzzle attachments. Take, for example, the muzzle brake. The description says that it, quote, improves stability by reducing muzzle climb by 25%, but adds a 30% penalty to the accuracy of automatic fire. The first half of this statement is easy enough to understand. Reducing muzzle climb can be translated to reducing vertical recoil. But what does adding a 30% penalty to automatic fire mean? It's a pretty vague statement. How is the automatic fire affected specifically? Thankfully for us, we've got the Battlefield Wiki, which states that the trade-off is increased increased bullet spread when firing the weapon automatically. Alright, fair enough. Why did the game have to be so vague about the trade-off though? To give a second example, let's look at the heavy barrel. It is a, quote, heavy cold hammer forged barrel to improve aimed fire accuracy at the cost of additional muzzle climb, a penalty to stability. When we think of a weapon's accuracy, we think of its recoil first and foremost above all else. When we see accuracy, our minds immediately go to how much or little we're going to have to fight the gun for it to stay on target. So with that kind of thinking in mind, when reading that the weapon's accuracy is improved but then simultaneously takes a hit, this comes off as a contradicting statement. Not to mention, this added green bar to the accuracy stat of the weapon is giving the impression that accuracy is in fact improved. What this attachment actually does is decrease the maximum aiming down sight bullet spread of a weapon while increasing the weapon's general recoil. Okay. It does increase the weapon's accuracy by enabling a tighter spread so your shots don't deviate as much, but what people usually think of first when they think of a weapon's accuracy is the very part that is affected negatively with this attachment. So, when they read the part about improving aimed fire accuracy, see the green bar representing a positive effect in the accuracy section, and then try it out only to have the weapon be harder to control thanks to increased recoil, it's no wonder people are going to be confused and feel like they were misled. Number 4 on the negatives list is the campaign. I know, the campaign doesn't have anything to do with the multiplayer, but I still wanted to mention it quickly here. Something about China, something about Russia, something about the US, explosions happen, people die, ships go boom at the end, the M249 and P90 are locked behind 2 of the endings to the campaign. You play as someone. I really cannot be bothered to talk about this campaign more. We're moving on. This final negative about Battlefield 4 is related to the quality of life adjustments from later entries that are gone here. This isn't anything against the game directly, as it would be unfair to look at innovations from later entries, then look back at Battlefield 4 and be like, why don't you have that, huh? But things like mantling over walls, squad revives even when you're not a medic, being able to take health and ammo from players rather than needing to rely on them throwing it out for you, things like that are missed. Again, this is nowhere near a life or death deal, but having played the later entries, those quality of life adjustments missing here can be felt. This is more of a heads up kind of thing for if you do go back to Battlefield 4. It's remarkable, yet bittersweet, just how well this game has held up over the years. Remarkable in how well this game has stood the test of time, but also bittersweet because the games that followed have been varying in degrees of quality. Battlefield Hardline was an alright game on its own, but the cops versus robbers setting wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea. So, lots of people went back to Battlefield 4 and realized just how well the game could stand the test of time. Battlefield 1, an amazing game that takes us back to World War I of all conflicts, absolutely nailed the setting, the gameplay, the atmosphere of one of humanity's bloodiest wars. While people such as myself loved the setting and gameplay, some people didn't care for the setting, the gameplay, or both. As a result, they could always go back to Battlefield 4. Battlefield 5's launch wasn't the best, to put it politely. Bugs, glitches, content missing at launch, Patrick Sutherland telling us to not buy it if we don't like it, the whole shebang. While people were waiting for that game to improve, Battlefield 4 was one of the games that welcomed players back with open arms. And now, here we are with the latest entry in this franchise, Battlefield 2042. It should be no surprise that I do not like this game. My jabs at it throughout this video were probably a pretty clear enough indication. A game that has been without question the most damaging entry to date. A game that opted to toss its unique identity to the side in order to chase trends rather than make all new ones. With this game being an absolute betrayal to what Battlefield as a whole stood for, it's no wonder people have gone back to play the older titles, Battlefield 4 included. The scary thing is though, Battlefield 4 being a primarily online game, at some point, EA is going to pull the plug. With EA currently sunsetting Battlefield 1943 along with the multiplayer side of Bad Company and Bad Company 2, plus with the official servers for older games having long since been deactivated, that serves as a painful reminder that it's only a matter of time until Battlefield 4 is next. I'm sure that we'll be able to bring the online services back in some way, shape, or form when the inevitable does occur. That being said, knowing how companies, especially ones like EA, operate, sooner or later, they'll look at their spreadsheets looking to cut costs, they'll see the costs to keep the servers for a 10-plus-year-old game, and, well, we know the rest from there. I don't know how much time Battlefield 4 has left, in an official capacity at least, and I think that's ironically what makes me appreciate this game more. It helps that the game itself is genuinely well built and fun to play, of course, but to know that we have a finite amount of time left with this game, for me at least, it makes me appreciate it even more. This game has given me so many good memories throughout my time playing. While I wasn't playing this game every single day of my life, the fact that I wanted to regularly revisit this game as I was growing up is a testament to how fun it is. No matter what, I will always love and appreciate Battlefield 4. This game is, in my eyes, the brightest shining light that Battlefield currently has. Happy 10-year anniversary, Battlefield 4.